The battle of the Eagle and Lion is set to begin at long last. Everyone, show off the results of your dedicated training.
Remember, we're not just fighting for honor. There's a prize at stake.
It's almost time to begin. Steel yourselves, everyone.
So talking about Three Houses is a little more difficult in my opinion than any other Fire Emblem because of the differences that this game has in reaction to other Fire Emblems, like more classic Fire Emblems. In this game, I feel like roles aren't really locked as much as previous games. The weapon triangle is effectively gone, which we saw in Echoes, but we didn't see in Fates. So how do you feel about these impacting differences in the general mechanics of the game?
Interesting that you brought that up, because pretty much everything is unlocked in this game. Echoes, you're right, the weapon triangle's not there because it's a very faithful remake to the second Fire Emblem game where there was no weapon triangle to begin with. In fact, axes weren't even usable in Echoes, so I don't know how they would do the weapon triangle out of just a sword and a lance. I think Three Houses was a ton of fun. I personally wouldn't want them to do the whole monastery mechanic going forward. I think it was really good for this game and it added something completely new, but I personally wouldn't want it going forward because it kind of makes the pace a little too... It just doesn't really fit my taste personally. But overall, yeah, the game is great. The plot differs considerably for each of the routes.
We had spoken about this before. We even said that, having this game as, in general, is an advantage just because you actually get 4 games in one, right? You had said that before, that, with all the 4 different routes and the way that it plays out, you get a lot of replayability value out of this. And I have to agree with you 100%. This game feels very, very replayable, so much so that I've replayed it probably 8 to 9 times easily in different difficulties as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of times. I mean, that's entirely possible with this game with 4 different routes. If you replayed it 8 to 9 times, that's about 2 playthroughs per route. So it's like not as crazy as you might think.
No, one's on hard and one's on maddening. You know what I mean? For each route.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you on the monastery, particularly in the pacing. That was you hit it on the nose there. The pacing of the monastery is incredibly slow after a while. In the beginning, it's all fun and games, right? It's like a new relationship. Like, oh my god, this is so good. Everything is so pretty. Look at all this cool stuff that I'm doing and blah, 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 blah. But then reality starts to hit in. And the further on, you just kind of like want to progress through real quick. You're like, I just want to get to the next chapter. I just want to see the story. And you're stuck there grinding these units with this like weird 4-time mechanic of teaching them over and over and over again, which could have been easily reduced to 1 button press. I just feel like that whole thing it got old for me pretty quick. Or at least it couldn't have been as lengthy as it was. There was a lot of cool stuff in the monastery, like fishing, the tea party, the renown and the saints, the quest, talking to everybody. Like, there was a lot of investment there, and I agree that it was amazing. Like, you could see that there was a lot of effort put into it, right? But sometimes less is more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I find interesting about Three Houses is the monastery feels a lot like a Persona game where you're socializing with the characters, building up certain stats and so on. In fact, there was a game, Shin Megami #FE, which was supposed to be a cross between Fire Emblem and Persona, but Three Houses feels like the real cross between Fire Emblem and Persona because of the monastery mechanic.
You're talking about Tokyo Mirage Sessions, right?
Yeah, Tokyo Mirage Session, yeah.
Gotcha.
Specifically because Three Houses seems to incorporate a lot of Persona mechanics, which is a good thing because I love both games. The major difference is that Persona tends to go day by day, whereas Three Houses goes week by week. So that's like the big differences between the 2 games, but it still has that whole, experiencing everyday life sim feel to it.
Understood. And that incorporates, I think that's why in a portion of it was a lot of success because people could resonate with the characters more, right? There was a bonding experience with your students, which we haven't reached yet, but you could bond with those students that you chose from your house and or from other houses too and bring them along. And that creates a unique environment too. But I gotta agree with you, I think that it took away a little bit of the identity. Having Lysithea as an armor knight I mean, it's fun for memes and all, but it kind of takes away that identity of like having the small nuke mage, you know? It allowing everybody to be everything opened up a lot of customization options, but it also took away uniqueness. And I feel like that's a balance that I wish was struck better in the next Fire Emblem game.
I'm actually kind of looking forward to hopefully going back to the more streamlined experience. I thought this was a great experiment. I had a ton of fun for it, but it feels more like a one-time only deal for me. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of overlaps. You could basically make any character into anything you want. And it was interesting that you brought up building the bonds with your own students and other students, because it almost feels like in this game, you know, it's a lot about Violet poaching students from other classes so you can just recruit everyone.
Particularly Lysithea, let's be honest. Everybody poaches Lysithea.
Yeah, it's because she's busted. She's really, really good. She has high magic, decent speed, warp, and...
Don't forget Dark Spikes.
Oh, yeah. Being able to one-shot the Dark Knight. Right?
Death Knight.
But Death Knight.
Yeah,
I'm confused.
You're thinking about Batman. Lysithea can one-shot Batman.
I'm thinking about FE10.
The Black Knight?
And...
Also not the Dark Knight, but okay.
well, in the Japanese version, they call him the Dark Knight. Which
kind of makes sense. His armor is the Ebon, like it's ebony, right? It's a black suit.
But that kind of like brings up the point that Three Houses has quite a few similarities with the Telly's game, Path of Radiance, and the one you're currently playing, Radiant Dawn. By the way, check out Axum's Radiant Dawn playthrough. It's a lot of fun. Well, let's just say he had a lot of fun with the mechanics the other day and did some pretty funny strats.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate the shout out within our YouTube video. That's pretty dope. You should also check out Acting Hero 13. He does amazing runs of not just Fire Emblem, but other games as well. So, yeah, we'll add that one in there too.
Thanks, man. I feel like that was pretty meta.
That was pretty meta of us in our meta universe. You picked Claude the first time you played. I picked Dimitri, and I know someone that started recently, and they picked Edelgard. And I think that all of these different choices that you make actually impacting your gameplay is one of the positive aspects of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Particularly, you can see these changes really start in White Clouds, right, which is the first arc of the whole game, which is the academy phase is what we call it, when you get to see your units prior to getting older or whatever. And there's a lot of things that happen during this arc that are pretty cool. Like, I feel like there's a lot of good character building.
I agree, although Edelgard is the true route because she's red, and red is the best color. That's indisputable.
We always play with blue units in every single Fire Emblem game, so Blue Lions is the correct route.
We'll talk about that after the stream.
Just saying. I never had no red units in this game.
Dimitri comes across as the chivalrous knight who has, no drawbacks, very polite, very friendly, very sincere. But it's actually kind of like the game says in the beginning. He has kind of a dark past, which I don't want to go too in depth because that's spoiler territory. So it is interesting. As you learn more about that through the game, Dimitri gains a lot of character development. And in the second half, that just goes up by like 20 million. With Edelgard, you learn more about how determined she is to reach her goals. I'm trying to be as vague as possible with that because of potential spoilers, but basically she's someone who will achieve her goal no matter what. Claude, well, I'd say he's the most laid back of the bunch. Claude is someone who at least I can see myself hanging out with and having a good time without it being too intense. He kind of feels the most down to earth out of all the characters.
I feel like Claude is the most consistent out of all three too. Like, he, not to say that he doesn't have any growth, but out of all of them, he feels like he's more or less the same in the beginning as he is at the end, but just with more people supporting his goal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree. Claude kind of feels like the everyman, which is an archetype that it's used in movies a lot to represent a person that almost anyone can relate to. Like, Claude, I really do feel like would be the real life friend. Whereas Edelgard and Dimitri, well, let's just say they go through a lot of extreme circumstances, and it gets interesting.
Particularly because of the setup that they have there. You know, you have Geralt, who is Violet's father, and spoilers are coming now. You know, you have those who slither in the dark, or the setup of those who slither in the dark, which are basically the enemies that are kind of operating in the background, and they eventually do something that leads to Violet suffering a huge loss in the form of Geralt just dying, being killed by Crania. I actually feel that Crania and Solon, for that regard, are kind of just in there to do that real quick, and then you're thinking like, oh man, like Solon's gonna be the true enemy now, and he's gone. And it's like, whoa.
It is interesting. It's like, that was kind of like an in and out type scenario. It's like they took a kitchen knife, pushed it ever so gently into Geralt, and yeah, just kind of went off and did their own thing. It is interesting that they also incorporated Harry Potter into Fire Emblem by putting Slytherin in there.
Oh shit.
Sorry, that's just a joke.
I didn't even realize that. That is great. Wow, that is good. That's true. It does. It's slither in the dark. Another mechanic that's kind of added now in this game, and I really enjoy, particularly you see this in the Miklon chapter, is the addition of beast units. After you kill Miklon, he becomes a beast because the crest takes over his body, because people that don't have a crest cannot be allowed to theoretically wield the weapons. So his punishment is to basically be transformed into an Umbral beast. And that Umbral beast is probably the first encounter you have with an actual beast in the game. It's a really cool fight. I think it's super interesting, like how they incorporated them, how they did it. I thought it was super cool. The fact that they have like these shields that you can break down by either attacking them or using gambits to basically weaken them down. And once you do weaken all of the shields down and break them all completely, they take extra damage, and you also get materials to craft your weapons again, which is super cool. I thought that like, I have no complaints about the beasts in this game. I think they're really smart, really interesting. There are a lot of bosses that are beasts as well, which is comes as a surprise, but they're pretty cool, and I really like them. I think the mechanic is great.
So just to kind of backtrack a little bit and explain what these beasts are, there's something completely new to Three Houses. They're like these giant monsters. They take up at a minimum like 4 squares on the map, and they have completely unique mechanics. It's like Axum was saying earlier, they have shields all around their body. Like if an Umbral beast takes up 4 squares, they'll have 4 shields. If they take up 6 squares, then they'll have 6 shields. And what happens is you can slowly whittle those shields down, but there are ways to do it more effectively. Attack gambits typically destroy one piece of the shield depending on where you target. It's in a line and it hits 2 spaces. It will break the first shield in that line, but damage the second one. So the goal is to break all the shields on these beasts, because that will stun them, meaning that they can't counterattack on you, and they'll take a lot more damage. Umbral beasts, they typically have multiple health bars. The reason they do this is so that you can't just, one round them easily. So when you take out one health bar, it goes to the next health bar, but additional damage doesn't carry over. Like, for example, if the first health bar had 10 HP left and I do 22 damage, it's only going to take out the first health bar. We're not going to get an additional 12 on the next health bar. Again, it's just to balance them out to make sure that they're as challenging possible. And it's like Axum said, they give you weapon repair materials, and one of the most common ones they give out is one that can repair the Sword of the Creator.
Favorite units from the first part of the game, besides the main lords of each house. So just name me one guy that or girl that you really liked from the first part of the game without being the main lords.
Oh, that's not very fair. Gatekeeper.
But he's not okay. I was gonna say the Church of Saros is separate. I mean, from the actual houses. But I agree, the Gatekeeper is dope.
For the record, he actually is a unit.
He is. He's the best unit.
I love the fact that they can kind of parody themselves by putting Gatekeeper in the game.
They put him in Fire Emblem Heroes, and I'm so happy that they did. That was the community speaking out and getting what they wanted.
Lysithea.
Good choice.
Felix. It's tough between him and Annette, because Annette is entertaining, but Felix is just ridiculously OP. Maybe Ferdinand?
I do like Ferdinand von Ayer, to be honest with you.
Yeah. He's so noble and genuine in a weird way. Oh, also, Yuri. No, Happy.
Yuri is the true lord. Let's be honest here.
Yuri's got a great hero's relic. Let's just put it that way.
I never seen a unit be so strong in any iteration of any game he's in. That's Yuri. Like, he's busted in 3 houses. He's busted in Fire Emblem Heroes. He's busted. I'm pretty sure if they launch like a Muzo with him in there, he's gonna be busted in that game too. He's just busted. I like that you said Annette because of her entertaining. Like, I like her little songs and stuff, and the fact that she sings everywhere that she goes. That's really cute.
Yeah.
She's very entertaining. She's very endearing, and she's an okay unit. Felix is probably one of the strongest one there. As a War Master, he's just unstoppable. As a Bocav, he's unstoppable. He's just very good. He's a very player phase oriented. His hero relic is really strong. He's just a really, and he has a major crest, which is majorly busted. It's particularly his. He's ridiculous.
It's not like genealogy where, you just pick a handful of units and, 6 of them are major bears.
Who from the church do you like the most? Which unit from the church? Like, between Alois, Shamir, Cyril, Flame, those guys.
Thunderstrike, Cassandra, of course.
I agree. It kind of feels a little sad that you can't really get Cassandra, or Catherine in this case, during Edelgard's route because of the fact, that it diverges and can split one of 2 ways. So Cassandra's not actually available for Silver Snow or Crimson Flower at all, but for Silver Snow, the majority of it, she's not available, which actually is why most people think that the Silver Snow route is the most difficult. The absence of a Lord and the limiting time that you have with Cassandra, who's such a powerful unit in early game, really increases the difficulty on that playthrough.
I thought all of the Knights of the Church of Saros just join at the beginning of Silver Snow. Not the first chapter, but the chapter after that.
They can, but what about during White Clouds? Like, you don't have access to Cassandra.
I don't have. Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that's what sucks.
But you have access to Edelgard and Hubert, so I don't know. I think you're in good hands.
Hubert is okay, honestly. I remember when I played the Crimson Flower, I just benched him because I had Lysithea. So there's no point in carrying around Hubert if you have Lysithea. Although they both have Dark Spike, so you could argue you can get 2.
Hubert does have some nice spells like Mire. Plus he hits hard, and I can't remember, one of his spells holds an enemy in place after you're done using it.
For that matter, now that you brought that up, Bernadette is actually a sleeper unit on Crimson Flower run too, because she actually has Immobilize in one of her arch abilities is Immobilize or something like that, and you can immobilize pretty much anything in the game. It's great to be able to do that. And early game, she's very good because of her personal skill.
And Closer, is that exclusive to her?
Claude has it too.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna do something here that's really releg a couple of units that I feel are just abysmal. Like they're not very good, or they're good for the time that you have them a little bit, but then afterwards they fall off so hard that you can't really use them at all. And I'm gonna say like Ignatz falls in that category, Casper falls in that category. Nobody in the Blue Lions really falls to that category. I feel like the Blue Lions has the most amount of people I would use. Ash. I lied. Ash kind of sucks. Ash is not very good at all. Ash has such a bad
Annette
growth.
actually falls off.
I feel like Annette falls off, but she at least can act as a rally bot. She can do something. But what can Ash do? Pick locks? Like, who cares? Just use a chess key. Or go assassin.
Pick the lock. How many chess keys do you get in that game? You do need someone to pick the locks.
Then you reclass somebody into a class that can do it. Like, you don't need lock touch. You can do it with anybody. He's not unique in that regard. But Annette's rally skill is unique. And she also has access to the Crusher, which is pretty good.
True. Although the Crusher has pretty low accuracy and it's only range 1.
Yeah, but having adaptive damage on it can offset that. Having the ability to strike with magical damage on a physical unit is pretty valid. Even if it's just like very unique, like if it's very niche, it still is good.
Right, but she has spells.
Yeah, why would I ever need to put her in melee range? That's true. That's why I usually put her as a horse, because then she can go in, crush something, and then bounce out. But I agree with you. It doesn't really make sense.
I like that strategy, actually.
What to put as a horse?
Kanto with the Crusher.
Yeah, that's what I would usually do for her, Kanto with Crusher. But then again, I kind of go horse on everything. Every time that there's an opportunity between a horse and not horse, it's usually horse.
Yeah, this is another game where mounts are absolutely busted.
Particularly the flying mounts are very strong. Like the Pegasus and the Wyvern Lords have incredible base stats. So if you want to just crush through stuff, just make everybody a Wyvern Lord, because the bases are so high that they're valid under any condition almost.
Yeah, if you make someone a Wyvern Lord, they basically just get a free base speed of 20. And that's permanent. So,
which is absurd. Yeah. Absurd.
I don't mind, because I love broken stuff in video games, but yeah, flying units are insane in this game.
I just don't like when you see like people go and playing the game optimally and they just have like 7 Wyvern Lords and you're like, wow, I guess what's the best class in this game? You know, it just, I feel like the uniqueness. That's again, this is going back to the issue of everybody being able to be everything. Kind of takes away a little bit of the identity of the game. Like, you don't have any units that you're like, oh man, you really need to have Milady in order to clear this, or like, gotta do Rucker here. You just kind of go like, well, you just need Wyvern Lords. But guess what? You can have all of them, because anybody can be a Wyvern Lord.
Yeah, it kind of does feel like, I mean, on my runs, I always like to just give everyone bows. And you're right, you know, make them a Wyvern Lord, or if they can be a Darkflyer, use that. Like, because those just seem like the most broken things in the entire game because of close counter and flyers just being like giant stat sticks that can actually fly.
True, especially with Transmute, right? That's their personal skill that gains them +4 and everything if they're attacked with magic.
Yeah,
which is a lot. That is a lot of stats for one attack.
But yeah, I mean, I love Three Houses to death, but I'm hoping to go back to the more streamlined experience, because for me, that increases replayability. You know, Three Houses, I loved going through it. I loved going through it a bunch of times, but it's kind of hard to go back to because the Monastery just changes the pacing of the overall game. Whereas, you know, I can do a quick run of FE7 by just going from chapter to chapter to chapter, you know, skipping the dialogue if I've already seen the story and so on.
And also picking up different units, right? Which is maybe a unit you never used before. But this time, since you had access to everybody and they could become everything, it's not like you need to go back to see like, oh, let me see what Ignatz feels like as an assassin. Like, you already probably had him at some point.
Yeah, exactly. You know, having characters be at least restricted to certain weapons makes them play differently. You know, you can't make Raven a bow user in FE7 despite his awesome stats, because he's not a bow user. He's a mercenary, not like a archer or sniper.
Yeah, having that identity really brings up more quality in terms of replayability, which is something that, you know, it needs to be addressed in the next Fire Emblem. I also kind of don't like that you never recruited an enemy unit. Like, you never walked up to somebody, talked to them, and was like, you need to join me, and then they join you. Like, this only happens in very specific scenarios. If you have a certain, like, it can happen with Ash, if I'm not mistaken, during the post White Clouds. I don't remember exactly which units can do this too, but I do remember Ash 100%. You can do it with Ash. If you have a certain level of support with Ash, you can just walk up to him during the post time skip and talk to him, and he'll actually recruit onto your team because he appears first as an enemy. But at the same time, that's kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same as when you had to like use Lilina to talk to Garrett to recruit Garrett, or, you know, or try to figure out how to recruit certain units. It just kind of was there. I never would have not thought like, what happens if I don't talk to Ignatz with Violet or Ash with Violet? Like, you know, I would know that that's what I'm supposed to do. And to some degree, the obscurity of recruiting certain characters was actually really cool.
Yeah, honestly, I miss that a lot. The last time I remember recruiting enemy units was in Awakening, which was way back in 2013. And even then, Gaius was the only enemy you recruited. In 11 and 12, you did that because they were remakes of older games. And in FE 9 and 10, you were able to do that too. I do miss recruiting enemy units.
Yeah, a unique part of the franchise and being able to convince other people in the enemy team to join you. And I don't know why they shied away from it. Maybe because it was so obscure and difficult to figure out. Some people in particular, like I'm looking at you, Carla, was obnoxious to figure out. Like, you wouldn't have known how to do it if you didn't look up a guide, on your first playthrough at least. So a couple of secret tidbits that are pretty cool, and that I didn't know the real time that I played around with this, is that you actually can get Rhea up to, like, you have to get her up to an A support before the midpoint of the game to be able to marry her at the end of the game.
I thought it was specifically exclusive to Silver Snow. Getting a support with Rhea can be pretty tough. She seems, I don't know like the exact data, but she seems to have pretty high support requirements in terms of making her happy. I think you have to wait till certain plot points in the game to be able to do the support. You have to do it within a certain time frame. I think they block it off even before the White Clouds part of the game is done.
It's actually super difficult. I remember that it was the most stressful part of my Three Houses experience completionist on Silver Snow. Was getting that was actually more difficult than anything else. I needed, and that's weird to say, because even the end game is insane. The last chapter of Silver Snow is bonkers, but the tea party with Rhea was almost as difficult as all that.
Thank you guys so much for watching. It has truly been a lot of fun to create and put this content out for you all. Send feedback. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to collaborate or join a session, please reach out.
Do so in the comments or by contacting us. We can be reached at fireembros@gmail.com or on our respective Twitches in the banner link or down below. Also, just so you know, the like subscribe button is an armored unit, so go ham and hammer it.
Join us on the next episode of Fire Emblem Three Houses Critical Hit Review, Azure Moon.